The name of the show is In the Shelter of Trees. I chose that because I realized how important trees have been, not only to my artistic life, but just to me in general, and how prominent trees are in my art. And I feel very safe under the shelter of trees, and just that name seemed to say it all. I feel most like myself when I am in nature. And when I'm going on a trail that is leading through the trees, I just feel so good, so at peace, like that's where I'm meant to be. And the Great Bear Rainforest is on British Columbia's northwest coast, and it is home to a very special bear, which is called a spirit bear. And spirit bears are black bears that have a double recessive gene for white. So they're white bears. They're very important bears to the indigenous people because of the fact that they are white and that they are very rare. And we were very lucky to actually have a white bear, one of these spirit bears, just come out of the forest and walk along the river directly in front of us. Probably one of the most special moments of my life. I think I am trying to capture special moments. I'm trying to capture the feeling that I had when I was in a place, and I think I'm trying to capture it for me too. In recent years, I primarily work in felt, and I make my own felt. What I like about working in felt is you start with raw wool. I do purchase already dyed raw wool that has been carded. I lay that out along with plant fibers, silk fibers of various kinds. And then I actually add water and soap and agitation and get all those materials to shrink down together and form felt. Some of my work is quilted, so some of it would be a top that I have either appliqued or painted or worked on, and then a batting layer and another layer, and I use my sewing machine to draw lines and stitch and quilt it in a very traditional way. But some of my work is felt tops. And so for felt, they're thick enough that when you sew on them, they just create that wonderful texture with the lines. I made Oceans Alive after about, I think it was a 10-day trip up to the Great Bear Rainforest. And what became so apparent was the importance of salmon. And that salmon were sort of underlying all of the wildlife and the forests that are so rich and beautiful on the West Coast. It is really trying to show how critical the salmon are. Bears eat the salmon, they then fertilize the forest, and the bears are really the kingpin of it all. If you look carefully at the bottom, and you look at the quilting, it's all salmon that are forming the bottom layer and then coming up and around and back into the piece. What I think I was trying to do in that piece is really get the feeling. Standing in front of the lake with the wildflowers still in bloom in late August, with Mount Assiniboine clearly there in the distance, it was just magical. I love drawing houses, and so it came very naturally to kind of, put these houses and to imagine how they might have been in my grandmother's time when she lived in a shtetl. And then I don't know if you noticed, there's a little rooster just at the bottom, because I always imagined there'd be chickens and roosters in these villages. And that's actually a good example of a felt that has been machine quilted, but it's just the felt top, but it gives that wonderful texture because the wool is thick. I do now collect silk when I find it, but I'm trying very hard to use what I have because I feel like I have enough for the rest of my life. But every little while, I do find a fabulous piece of silk and say, how am I going to use this? I hope when people view my work that they get a sense of the place, they get a feeling, they can relate to what I'm trying to portray. I think one of the nicest compliments that I ever had was a couple of months ago, there were two women in my studio looking at a piece, and one of them said to the other, I feel like I can smell the forest. That was probably the nicest compliment anyone could give me.